credit professionals have for years, as have risk professionals, known and identified the risks and the events and mitigated towards them and quantified and mitigated them. So understanding the connectivity that occurs when an event occurs or across certain risk classes is a key skill set that a risk professional can bring to the organisation. So events are no longer just a credit event or a regulatory issue. Understanding that connectivity across the board is key and brings value to the organisation because it's that connected or that connectiveness across those that adds value. Because as we're dealing with uncertainty in a more complex environment, understanding how to deal with those assists the bank or the financial institution overall.
The term big data is both ubiquitous and ambiguous, and I really wish that I trademarked it about 5 years ago. Big data is really just another decision-making tool, so you should really just evaluate it in the same way that you would any other data source. If you can prove that its veracity is high, that the attributes are stable, that it's highly predictive, that the causal link is really well understood, it's socially acceptable and legal, then go for it and use it.
I actually don't see a conflict between control and innovation, quite the reverse, especially in trust markets like consumer credit. Classic case of that would be big data. We know it's predictive in the use of credit models, but the trick is, how do we look at that through a few filters? The first is one of public policy. Are we okay with the idea that people might be denied credit based on the Facebook photos they have? That is absolutely not a question for modelers, it's for the community. Second is one of privacy. How do we get access to that big data in a way that keeps consumers and the community comfortable? Now, we have legislation, we have a current inquiry on data availability and use, and globally there are movements like privacy by design. Now, the third filter is one close to my heart, and I think anyone who builds models, it is never an excuse to say the model made the decision. How do we educate ourselves and the industry so that we can really learn how to edit and critique those models so that we make sure we don't make really problematic decisions at scale? So where does that all get us? I think that really gets us to a definite need to invest as much time, energy and effort into adaptive controls that keep pace with innovation as much as we do in investing in the innovation itself.
Big data should drive clarity through data-driven decision-making, but currently does not in most cases. Experience to date suggests this is due to approach that organisations take. So most organisations actually start with an IT or purely data-driven approach. So therefore they go off building infrastructure to increase their data capacity with no specific plans on how to use the data or the information. What this leads to then is large IT projects that are quite complex with ever-increasing budgets and creates multiple data sources. So again, it goes away from the mantra of having a single source of truth. I think to get results, it's paramount that you actually start with a specific business problem to solve and then look for the extra data needed. So in summary, big data should provide clarity, but it currently does not.
In Australia, we've been an early adopter of CCR. We were the first to share data publicly with other lenders, and it's why we've been quite vocal in terms of trying to encourage the industry to adopt CCR more broadly. I think even the most pessimistic amongst us 2.5 years ago when CCR was introduced would have thought that actually we would have made more progress than we have today, with only around 1% of accounts being shared publicly. Hopefully during this conference we can recognise that together we can have an influence on our respective organisations and hopefully over the next few years leave a legacy of real progress on the CCR front.
Risks, of course, will be vital as lenders and banks deal with these increasingly volatile times. And of course, risk will need to change in order to make themselves relevant as the dynamic environment changes. They need to change in order to deal with a demanding customer and increasing competition, and of course they need to become more adaptable to do that. Customer risk will become front and centre rather than product risk. Organisations will need to be thinking very much about total value of the customer. And of course, data-driven approaches, evidence-based approaches will become critical to ensure that value rather than just risk is being measured at each point. in the customer cycle.